We have another great story I anticipate from my next guest, Senator Pamela Wallin, who also knew the former Prime Minister very well. How are you feeling today?
Well, it's a day in my mind to celebrate what he represented. This is a man who brought great change to this country. I think he helped us grow up. And when he tackled that free trade agreement, when it came at a great political cost, you have to look back and say that was extraordinary leadership. So today is a day to be sad, but also to celebrate what he did for all of us and this country, and looking up at these buildings and remembering then. Covering it was, it was a different time. I'm old, what can I say? Covering all those things, but it was a time when partisanship was of course very real, but much friendlier and warmer. So I think we all long for those days.
How was it? We were just actually sitting here. I was telling you with your another former colleague, Minister Seamus O'Regan, as we watched you walk up to the casket. How did it feel in that room, and what was it like being able to talk to the family about their loss?
The family is amazing. They have Brian and Miller have raised 4 amazing citizens, is how I will put it. They're not kids. And they are going to make a contribution to this country too, and their partners are amazing because that's what they saw at home. But as I was walking up to the casket, I've got to say this, it might sound a bit odd, but it seemed too small for him because his personality and his presence was always so big. When Brian walked into a room, I mean, it was hands outstretched and crowds parted, and he was always front and center. So, you miss people with huge personalities like that too, because you feel that loss.
Larger than life.
Yeah, larger than life.
In the thick of it back in the day.
Yeah.
Did the gallery get it wrong with Mr. Mulroney? You can't be 100%. You're going to get some things
sure.
wrong.
I mean, I think the gallery missed what he was doing in 1983 when he was crisscrossing the country, going to every little barbecue and turning that into the largest majority government in the history of this country, because the Ottawa Gallery, of which I was a part, is always very Ottawa-centric, right? So sometimes you have to go to Wadena, Saskatchewan, to find out what's actually going on. And we all did. I've talked with the former Prime Minister many times about, we all thought the world was going to end with free trade, and, what would happen to every industries. We were so used to living in our own protected bubble, right? And he just changed so much about not just the country and made us a real economic player. But in the course of doing that, he changed our attitudes. Like, we used to have a pretty serious inferiority complex, and he made us truly an economic nation and a proper member of the G7 and all of those things. So I really thank him for that, and I do think that we sometimes missed his bigger vision while we were focused on the day-to-day and this battle in the House of Commons. And
because that's the job.
Yeah.
And you got to make the call.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore the anxiety out there that's part of your job.
No, and there was a lot of anxiety. There were a lot of industries that feared the jig was up for them. And there were a couple, of course, where they did take the hit. But most people in the longer run, if you can see the longer run, but we blame politicians for having, 4-year attention spans till the next election. We've got 15 minutes till the next feed, right? So we're not always the ones with the vision either. So
are you at all surprised by the degree to which Canadians are responding to his passing, like the way in which kind of people at a political level have come together, but beyond that, how far-reaching the reaction has been?
I'm not surprised, because I think, he was one of those people that when you met him, you were the most important thing right in front of him. He engaged. His family is doing it right now. I stopped and had a conversation. I've known those kids, quote unquote, since they were born. And they have, they have poise and they have manners, and they are respectful and thankful that people are here. But he and Mila treated people like that. So, what goes around comes around, and I think they're feeling that back. And I do think people are nostalgic for a time when you could have all those battles and partisan fights, but where it was done a little more, nicely is not the word. I hate saying nice and Canadian.
I know what you mean, but we've had almost every single guest we've had today has remarked about, has sort of reflected on the feeling of nostalgia Mr. Mulroney's passing has brought them.
Yeah, it was an incredible time. I think it was our coming of age as a country, so I think that's important. And then you've got a generation of people who were touched by him, who covered him, who knew him, who worked with him. Like the former MPs, the former senators, the former security guards, the former everything that are here, because Brian never forgot a face or a name.
Do you have before you go, do you have a single biggest television moment from his time as Prime Minister? You're such a good person when it comes to television. Well, I've got one I'm thinking of.
Well, I don't. I mean, we had lots of battles because I was the Ottawa bureau chief for CTV. Yeah. So you can imagine we came up against one another. And what I liked about, not so much at the time, but now, was his willingness to engage. And so he didn't dismiss you because you disagreed or asked the same question. I mean, going over the free trade agreement, page by page, word by word, he knew it. So if you asked him a question, he would answer it. But no, I think there was just a respect, and it was that he also knew your own story. And he knew where I was from, and he would know somebody that knew somebody that was, close to Wadena and Saskatchewan. And just the generosity. I had a very good friend, Marjorie Nichols. She was a reporter on the Hill for many years, one of the first women. She was dying of cancer. Brian and Mila called her and invited her up to Harrington Lake. No fuss, no muss, nobody knew. It was just an act of kindness, and Marjorie was a very good friend, and I heard about it 1,000 times. And then when we've all had our troubles in life, he's the one that reaches out. So you've got to love that.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. Senator Wallin, pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for sharing your memories today. I appreciate it.